Had an issue here regarding a child, 10-year-old child being counseled regarding whether this child wanted to be considered a transgender child, and with the school counselor, and we won't get into that, but I have a good question, and it's a two-part here. First of all, does Idaho provide any funding to Planned Parenthood? And secondly, will you support a bill to require parental opt-in for students to attend sex ed classes? And so opting in means that, how many of you have kids? And how many of those kids brought something home from school but it stayed in their backpack for a month before you found out about it? All right, okay. So the point of this is that the school districts know this, and so they will, quite often will have a program of some sort that the parent needs to sign, no, I don't want this, I want to opt out. So the purpose of this question, and hopefully the legislation, would be that the parent would have to get that piece of paper that the kid left in their backpack for a month that said, yeah, it's okay, I want to opt in. So there you go. Basically, would you support a bill that would require opt-in as opposed to opt-out? Is that microphone opting out?
Here we go again. Take them out of the institutions. You're not going to control this bureaucracy. It's taking more than $1.5 billion now, plus what it takes from property tax and the rest of it. Yeah, some of us are double paying because we're homeschooling or we're private schooling, yes. So it's part of the system. Yeah, we'd love to get rid of it, but it doesn't matter. Pay double, get them out of the system. They're propagandizing, come on. So we recognize that. Do we not recognize that? We get lost in these ideas that somehow parents are you're going to go to class and they're not going to let you know what's going on. Right. Why? Because you'll try to stop them. You know, the world has gone, I mean, we can see that last year, I talk about occupied zone. We try to look at this, and I don't speak for these people, but we see the world has gone crazy. Yes. There is nothing that makes sense anymore. And you want to try and stop an institution that is so well, I mean, it's 60, 80, 100 years old? The only way to deal with this is to take the kids out. The only way, and then you've got to figure out, it's not rocket science teaching these kids arithmetic, reading, writing, arithmetic. It's not. But we're afraid because things are so sophisticated. My oldest got just college. I'm going to figure out another way to do this. He just said, this is crazy. I'm paying too much for books. I'm paying too much for propaganda. I'm not going to listen to this. I went through law school. I mean, propagandized me all the way. Well, maybe the Lord kept me have perspective, but that's not going to be the case with all these kids. So this kind of question just drives me crazy. If you want control of the institution, you're banging your head against the wall. Stop banging your head against the wall.
I will not be long, but I just want to say that we had 4 kids that went through the system. I agree. If our kids were in school right now, they would not be in the regular school system. But they did back in the day, long time ago, and they had sex ed, and they had an opt-in system for the parents. You had to sign that you wanted your child to be in the sex ed classes. I went to our oldest son's sex ed class, and I was one of 2 parents standing in the back. And I listened to every bit of it, and I agreed with every bit of it. It was very well done, but that was 30-some years ago. So things have changed radically now, and I would not be in the same situation. So I think that if you have to keep your kids in the public school system, look at every single bit of their curriculum, go to any sex ed class. If you opt them in, I would opt them out. I mean, I would not allow them to go to sex ed classes now. And you just, that's a responsibility the parents have to have.
I taught my son sex ed class because we homeschooled our kids.
Go ahead.
If I remember the original questions right, then anything to defund Planned Parenthood, yes. And,
Say again.
and what was the other part?
Well, the question was, does the state fund Planned Parenthood?
Yes.
Yes. The answer is yes. And the follow.
Well,
So the follow would be, you would be willing to defund Planned Parenthood.
anything to defund Planned Parenthood, yes.
Okay, and the first part of the question is, would you support legislation that would require school districts to have an opt-in
Yeah, that's easy.
program?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
The second part of the question, the opt-in, I serve on the education committee, and one of my colleagues who sits right next to me is Barbieri. She's the one that sponsored the Fairness in Women's Sports. Just because you think you're a female and you're a biological male does not make you a female. I refuse to affirm their imagination. If they want to think that they're a unicorn, that's their business. They have no business forcing me to accept this state of dysphoria. Now, Barbara tried to pass a bill last year, or start a bill, to allow parents to opt in. There were other issues that she was working on, and she did not get that introduced. I think there was a lot of resistance to introducing it into the education committee. You have to realize that there's a lot of forces in the educational institution that don't want change from what they want. As my colleague here, Mr. Amador, said, there is mandatory K through 12 sex education going on in the state of Washington. The same thing is happening in the state of California. There is no option. You either go or you drop out of school completely. They have control over the mind of your children. And I want to bring up one other thing that we are seeing culturally that is coming down from the institutions of higher learning. You've probably heard some of the issues that are going on at BSU particularly. These are the social justice classes, Black Lives Matter presentations, posters up on campus, Project 1619, those sorts of activities. There is currently some legislation that we're trying to separate the budgets of the institutions, the four institutions of higher learning that the state funds. And oh, by the way, the state does not have a mandate constitutionally to fund those higher institutions of learning as they do K through 12 in the Constitution. But by separating out these budgets, we may be able to apply some pressure. And we've had some, I wouldn't say debate, but some discussion in some of the committees where we've had the president of BSU come down and try and defend some of these diversity inclusion issues. Did you know that we have a director of diversity at BSU that gets $138,000 a year of your tax money? And the other institutions, although much less suspect, also have these kind of programs. And unfortunately, when some of the kids go through those programs, they know that they will be ostracized if they raise their hand and try and voice any kind of opinion against that. We don't even, and there's talk about free speech zones on the campuses. Why do we have to limit free speech to a particular area or a particular time or a particular topic? This is insanity. There should be free speech everywhere. If you don't like the speech, you move away, you listen to something else. That's what this country was founded on, is freedom of ideas, and let the best idea win.